I don't think any of this is a good idea at all.
Coming up on WTV News, women in combat. Find out what one Wartburg Marine has to say about a change in military policy.
And see if you'll be charged an extra fee for using your credit card in downtown Waverly.
This is the first year. This is a total trial.
And find out how students at Wartburg are making a difference through a special class project. Your WTV News starts now.
You're watching WTV News, live on Wartburg Television. From the Grant Price Studio. Breaking news, local coverage, and sports. This is WTV News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ben Hoppenworth.
And I'm Kyle Pomolia. Fiscally driven schools like Wartburg College rely on student retention. The retention numbers have been released for this winter term.
For more, we welcome Trumpet editor Hannah Cox, who sat down with Vice President of Enrollment Management Edith Waldstein last week. Hannah?
Thanks, Kyle and Ben. Dr. Waldstein told me retention numbers have stayed about the same over the last 10 years. In the last 4 years, Wartburg has retained around 95 to 96% of its students. This year's numbers were right in the middle at 95.4%. Waldstein says students generally leave for a combination of reasons, whether that is financial, personal, or health related. She also told me she wouldn't be concerned unless the retention rate would dip another 2%.
Thanks, Hannah. And although retention numbers are staying the same overall, enrollment at the start of the year was still down about 60 people from last year. With next year's tuition numbers set to be released later this week, Student Senate had an open meeting to discuss the college's tuition, room, and board costs that could be coming up next year. Vice President for Administration Gary Grace and Chief Business Officer Rich Segerman answered questions students had about the college's finances. Most of the students' questions were centered around how much next year's tuition will be and how Wartburg sets its budget.
It gets approved 3 times, once preliminarily in February, once in May, and then finally in October. Even though by October we're already, 6 months into our fiscal year.
WTV News will continue to follow this story and will bring you more information when official numbers are released. And in a decision led by Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, U.S. military's top generals voted unanimously to allow women to serve in active combat.
WTV's Jacqueline Schutte joins us from our newsroom with more. Jackie?
Thanks, Ben. A poll by ABC News revealed that 73% of U.S. civilians support that decision to allow women in combat. However, the poll also found that veterans who have served in active duty are unsure if it is the best interest of women for them to be there.
Military officials said they believe this new policy will give women recognition for roles they are serving already in active duty on front lines. Those officials say front lines are not easily defined, which has allowed some women to already be serving in hostile situations in the Middle East. Dr. Penny Peer teaches gender equality classes at Wartburg and says the change in policy is a big step for women.
This ends up being more of a formality than an actual reality. I think that we've had instances over the past 15 years in terms of our combat, especially in the Middle East, where women are serving in roles which inherently put them in active combat.
Wartburg student and Sergeant Brian Lunsfoot served in the Marine Corps for 5 years, including 13 months in both Iraq and Afghanistan.
I think it's funny that the government has chosen to uplift that ban now when supposedly President Obama is about to pull our troops out from the Middle East.
He says the physical demands required of being in active combat are more difficult for women because of their physical build and biology.
I don't think that there's things that men can do that women can't. When you're an infantryman, you're on the front lines. You're hiking up 10 miles a day. You're carrying so much more gear than what you're already, than just your rifle. Some guys carry up to 150 pounds extra gear.
Sergeant Lunsfoot said active combat is an intense environment.
Combat it's getting shot at and it's shooting back, trying to kill or capture the enemy. It's getting blown up, it's seeing your friends, your brothers dying right in front of you. And it's uncivilized, really. Combat is.
Professor Pierce says this policy gives women currently serving in active combat recognition they deserve.
It just levels the playing field more, and it acknowledges what we've known for a long time.
Reporting for WTV News, I'm Jacqueline Schutte.
Professor Peer does agree that women and men do have different needs and cannot be treated the same. The integration of women in active combat will start as soon as May and be fully completed by 2016. Sergeant Loonshoot said that although his 5 years in the Marines were the proudest moments of his life, they were intense. Ben, back to you.
All right, thanks, Jackie.
Both seniors and first years have been asked to participate in a nationwide survey. The survey looks at a student's overall experience at Wartburg. The college uses that feedback from students to see what is working well and what may need improvement. The survey will be in an email tomorrow morning.
Wartburg students are now taking a deeper look into their lives using Facebook. Second year Tawanda Marinda created the new Facebook page called Wartburg Big Questions. Students who like the page can participate in asking questions about service, social justice, vocation, and other similar topics. Marinda says the page is a great outlet for students to get their questions asked.
When you're in college, your mind is just thinking about a lot of things. You want to know, what can I do with my life, or like, am I doing the right major? And so just to think about that and discuss with people, I think that was why I thought this would be really good at Wartburg.
The Writing, Reading, and Speaking Lab is seeing a large number of biology students since they began helping with lab reports. The WRSL had 76 consultations from the Biology 151 class in fall term. That made up 7% of total consultations. Shay Kruger is working in the Writing, Reading, Speaking Lab for her second year and says a lot of freshmen struggle with lab reports. Students can sign up online for a consultation with one of the 6 biology student workers. Coming up, could it be cheaper to just use cash? We'll tell you about one new fee that could make using a credit card even more expensive.
And you've seen all of the ads for online dating, but does it really work? We talked to some Wartburg students to get their thoughts on meeting someone online. We'll be right back.
You're watching WTV News with Ben Hoppenworth, Kyle Palmolia, and Shelby Granath. This is WTV News.
Welcome back. Consumers across the country are already hit with interest rates on their credit cards, but what if you had to pay an extra amount on top of that at the register?
Last week I talked to Waverly business owners to find out if we could be seeing that extra fee right here in Waverly. The current average interest rate for using a credit card is sitting just above 15%. These high interest rates already have some consumers upset.
I never use a credit card, but I use my debit card all the time. Just too easy to run up a big balance on it. I just like using my debit card, and when I come to the end of my money, I've come to the end.
Retailers now have the option to charge an extra 4% on credit card purchases. But is this something that the people of Waverly should be concerned with?
That I'm not planning on doing. A lot of other retailers I don't think are planning on doing that either.
Visa and MasterCard have both decided that businesses around the country can make their customers pay a fee for swiping their card. This makes up for the processing fee these retailers already pay. Even for some smaller businesses like Crawdaddy Outdoors in downtown Waverly, those processing fees can mean thousands of dollars.
It does cost me about $10,000 a year to take credit cards from customers because we all have to pay somewhere between 2% and 4%.
Here at Crawdaddy's, they have products ranging from $2 to $500 to $3,000. For example, on this $3,000 kayak, a 4% fee would cost an extra $120.
If I can save $100 on something by paying in cash, I'll probably look for a way to save that.
Yes, credit cards are definitely a big part of the way people pay for items in our store because of our high-priced items like kayaks and canoes. But I also know that in order for someone to come in and pay for a kayak or canoe with cash or check doesn't always work.
And big retailers like Target, Walmart, and Home Depot have already said they will not be charging this fee. And don't worry, if any store is charging you this processing fee, they will be required to post that information by the register. And Wartburg Artist Series continued its Artist Series last week with a performance that took the audience back to the Harlem days of the 1920s. The musical called Ain't Misbehavin', the audience got in on some upbeat musical numbers as well as some very fancy footwork, and a lucky lady even got pulled up on stage to dance. For more information on the upcoming Artist Series performance, visit www.wartburg.edu/artist.
And after 11 years, Artist Series director Myrna Culbertson will be retiring at the end of this year. Culbertson says the best part of her job has been getting to know actors and performers on a personal level. She was looking forward to moving to Eisenach Village here in Waverly after her retirement.
We were able to go on an autumn leaves tour in October only because I was not in charge of the Roots and Wings artist series. And so we looked at each other at that time and said, you know, we're getting to the point where we really don't need a lot of outside responsibility, so it's time for me to retire. So I'm doing that.
Wartburg Players presents the musical Kiss Me Kate. The cast traveled to DeWitt Saturday to give their first performance of the Broadway show. The group will perform on campus starting February 21st in Newman Auditorium. The comedy tells the story of a couple's rekindled love while performing in a Shakespeare play. Music director, Dr. Brian Faltzgraff is pleased with his students' work and looks for them to grow.
It's important for me to give my students and all of the other voice studio students an opportunity to actually practice what it is that we have been teaching them. And what better way to do it than on stage?
When we return, have you tried online dating? See the results of our online poll and what some students are saying about their online dating experience.
And we'll update you on the school bus kidnappings in Alabama. We'll be right back.
With Valentine's Day right around the corner, some people are desperately looking for that special someone. Some might even be looking online to find them.
WTV's Kaya Hart has more on how Wartburg students feel about online dating.
There are many different types of online dating sites ranging from niche audiences, such as farmers or Christians, to the basic eHarmony or Match.com. With so many choices, I asked students if they would ever try online dating.
Probably not, no.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
With the majority of the students saying no to online dating, one girl stood out. Second-year Chanel Hale has tried online dating, but when they met, the chemistry just wasn't there.
It was actually kind of weird because I only knew him through Twitter, so I didn't know him really well, but I thought I knew him kind of well. And then when we actually met, I was like, wow, I did not expect this.
Hale's relationship was short-lived and she has no plans on trying online dating again, but will consider a long-distance relationship after she's met the person first. Stephanie Newsom, Director of Counseling Services, says online dating could be dangerous and students should play it safe.
I think you have to be very smart about it. You have to let somebody know, and meet them in a public place. Let your friend know, this is where I'm going to be. Maybe have someone go with you, again, and not to give out too much personal information.
Some students still aren't buying it and rather date the old-fashioned way.
Online dating seems to be a little preposterous because it doesn't allow for interaction between people. It only is a profile. Somebody could make it up and it's not actually a good portrait of what the person is.
However you choose to date, always be safe and keep someone informed. Reporting for WTV, I'm Kaya Hart.
Although most students said they would not try online dating, our online poll says differently. 82% said they had tried online dating, and another 71% said they know someone who has.
The new Secretary of State has been sworn into office. Former Massachusetts Senator John Kerry has officially become the United States Secretary of State. Kerry is replacing Hillary Clinton, who served at that position during President Obama's first term. Clinton officially handed in her letter of resignation on Friday.
Unemployment numbers have been released for January. Unemployment nationwide rose to 7.9%, even though 157,000 jobs were outed this month. There were 311,000 jobs created in January of 2011. The
six-day hostage involving a 5-year-old boy and a Vietnam veteran has come to an end this afternoon. Last Tuesday, Alabama police said a man boarded a school bus and demanded to be given 2 children. The man then shot the school bus driver while 21 children escaped out of the bus's emergency exit. The intruder kidnapped a 5-year-old boy and took him to a nearby underground bunker. The man was pronounced dead this afternoon. The child appeared to be okay.
Last night's Super Bowl will most likely go down as one of the most memorable in history. Not only did the game go down to the wire, but the big story of the night was the power going out. Play was suspended for a total of 34 minutes. The power outage seemed to have an effect on the San Francisco 49ers as they nearly came back from a 21-6 halftime deficit. The Baltimore Ravens were crowned Super Bowl champions with a final score of 34-31.
And now let's check in with Shelby Granath for a look at what's coming up next in sports. Shelby?
Thanks, guys. Coming up in sports, the wrestling team traveled to Augsburg for the Battle of the Bergs. Would they be successful? I have all the highlights coming up in 2 minutes. Welcome back to WTV News. Last Thursday, the Wartburg wrestlers headed to Minneapolis for the annual Battle of the Bergs against Augsburg. Overall, the Knights had a dominating performance. Number 7, Gilberto Camacho, won by a 12-15 decision, and following him at 133 was number 1, Kenny Anderson, who earned an 18-1 tech fall, which was his 20th win of the season. The Knights recorded their first loss at 141 pounds as Andrew Johnson was defeated 8-3. Number 1, Cody Silvestri, improved his winning streak to 11 with a 13-3 major decision, and number 3, Cole Welter, also got a major decision win. Number 1, Landon Williams, and number 5, Dylan Azinger, also added decision wins for the Knights, and number 5, Sam Upaw, won by a major decision. Number 7, Puna Soriano, sent his match into overtime tied at 8, but just seconds in, he got the 2-point takedown for the win. And finally, number 6, Ryan Fank, was up against number 1, Chad Johnson. Unfortunately, Fank would not come out on top as he lost by a final of 6-1. When the dust had settled, Wartburg was on top by a final of 29-6. Number 1 Wartburg will be hosting number 14 Co this Friday for the Iowa Conference Championship duel. You can catch that duel live on Wartburg Television and KCRG 9.2 starting at 7 p.m. Now, the women's basketball team was in action twice last week. On Thursday, the Knights traveled to face the University of Dubuque. The game was tied with just under 2 minutes to play, and with a turnover on their last possession, the Knights fell by a close score of 49-48. The women were then in action on Saturday at Central. The Dutch controlled most of the first half here as Kaylee Richardson gets a jumper. Central led by 6 at halftime. With the Knights down by 9 in the second half, Abby Weideman sneaks past the defender for the easy 2 points. Then Central retook the lead with this 3-pointer from Alyssa Schwartz. But Wartburg wouldn't give up as Bailey O'Brien and Bobby Burrows nail a couple of 3 balls. The game was sent into overtime and Wartburg took control early as O'Brien gets the layup there and Weideman seals the win for the Knights and Wartburg comes out ahead 55-49. O'Brien led the Knights with her 19 points and 12 rebounds. With that win, the women improved to 6-4 in the Iowa Conference and 13-8 overall. The Orange and Black hit the hardwood again this Wednesday as they host Simpson at 6 p.m. Like the women, the men's basketball team was also in action in Dubuque and Pella last week. Against the Spartans, the Knights were up by 7 with 9 minutes left to play, but UD came back strong and Wartburg wouldn't be able to get the win as they fell 77-64. Let's see how the Knights could do against Central. Central took the early lead as Brandon Stubbs drains one from beyond the arc. Clay Cook gets aggressive here for the Orange and Black as he gets the and one to tie the game up at 13. Knights led by 1 going into halftime. Right away in the second, KJ Cool hits a jumper, but Eddie Deemer, recently back from injury, slams the door on the Dutch D. With just 8 minutes left in the game, it was tied at 60, but Central added a few points to take the 2-point lead. Trevor Dismore then hit a big 3, and Wartburg would stay ahead and pull out with the 76-70 victory. Dismore had a career-high 14 points to lead the Knights, and Clay Cook also added a double-double with 12 points and 12 rebounds. The men are now 7-3 in the Iowa Conference with that win and 12-8 overall. The men will play Simpson on Wednesday right after the women. And finally, the Wartburg track and field teams hosted the Wartburg Select last weekend. On the men's side, number 15 Wartburg won the meet with 222.8 points. The Knights won 6 events, including the 400, 600, and 5,000 meter run, 60-meter hurdles, 4x400 meter relay, and shot put. Tim Flores also broke a 41-year-old school record in the pole vault with his height of 4.35 meters. Now on the women's side, number 2 Wartburg placed second with 200 points. The women won 5 events, including 60-meter hurdles, 4x400 relay, triple jump, shot put, and weight throw. The Knights will hit the ground running again this weekend as the team will split between the Iowa State and UW Platteville meets. We'll be right back.
One class here on campus has taken on a class project unlike those regularly seen on campus.
WTV's Kelsey Bemis has more on this story.
Students in Dr. Susan Valum's IS 201 class are getting an unusual classroom experience, one that involves a few furry friends. The Military Families and Subcultures class has formed a partnership with Retrieving Freedom, a nonprofit organization dedicated to training service dogs. Valum says the partnership started with her own interest in the program.
So I went out to see, first of all, what he was doing and making sure that this fit, and I was very impressed, and asked him if we could do a partnership.
Each week, the dogs visit the students in the classroom. While there, the students do hands-on training with them.
Good boy, yes!
Retrieving Freedom President Scott Dewey says the partnership benefits the dogs greatly.
It's the best thing that could ever happen to the dog, is they'll learn here, and then they'll go there and be tested, and they'll learn again. And then when they go with their new recipient, they'll be tested and they'll learn again.
However, the dogs are not the only ones who learn from this project.
Basically my nonverbal skills. I think that's the most important, like my nonverbal skills will get a little better because, dogs are not really good with verbal. They usually go on nonverbal cues.
Dewey also has a tip for the students when it comes to working with these dogs.
Patience. Be patient. That's the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing of being any teacher.
Dewey and Valum both have things they hope the students will take away from this project.
I actually think that their biggest gain out of the class will not be, a greater love for dogs. Honestly, I think their biggest gain is going to be lifelong communication skills.
I'm hoping that the ultimate goal will be that our students will be better by working with the dogs through the class so that they learn from experiential learning as opposed to, okay, memorize this chapter and give me a test.
Reporting for WTV, I'm Kelsey Bemis.
Thanks for joining us and have a good night.